she just did a recent episode of her podcast, which was solo, not an interview. And sometimes she does this, a sit down episode where she's, she's in a hoodie and sweatpants on the couch with a blankie.
I saw
and
the
she
blanket.
has like the slicked back bun, and she's like, we're just gonna get real with each other right now. We're gonna, really connect on this solo episode of Call Her Daddy. And the topic of that episode was why she is not ready for a baby. She is recently married as of last year, and she was planning on starting a family until her career started blowing up even more, and she decided to prioritize that. As she explains in this first clip, it's okay to change your mind and change your plans. This was her personal story and her advice to her audience.
Okay, here we go.
My career had never been busier and never been bigger. This past year, I signed a huge new deal. I turned 30. I didn't want to slow down. And getting pregnant inevitably would mean I had to slow down. I remember starting to have doubts. It started to eat me alive inside because this wasn't the plan that Matt and I were so excited about, and it's not the plan that we talked about and that we agreed upon. How had I gone from being so sure and so excited to start this process, and then now I'm doubting myself and second guessing everything, and I'm doing all this like fucking math in my head, and I think I started to like get so anxious and panicked, and I started to feel like it was all just like getting away from me, and I was losing this precious time. And so, of course, I had moments, I'll admit, when I started to think, fuck it, just try and suck it up. Like maybe once I'm pregnant, I'll feel differently. But then I always came back to like, I just know myself, and I know in my gut, I need more time. My career had...
What she is describing about her marriage is that her marriage is a show and she's the star of it. What she just described is actually grounds for divorce and annulment in the Catholic Church. If you marry someone under a false pretense that you're planning to have a family, and they take back that commitment, you were never married because you did not know what you were consenting to when you got into it. And she just had to tell her husband, well, no, I'm in charge because my podcast is a bigger deal than our marriage and our future family. And there were so many comments from her fans saying, you'll never regret waiting. You'll only regret making the wrong decision too early. A lot of women saying they had their first babies in their late 30s to even their early 40s. Yeah. Had my son at 38. Don't rush it. We've been lied to our whole lives. You don't need to get pregnant or have kids to have a happy, great life. Motherhood shifts your focus, and if your focus is on your career, then that's okay. More than okay. It's commendable and responsible of you to think it out loud. So she's not just sharing this as her own personal story. She is sharing this as life advice for her fans. And in the second clip from this episode, she captions it, F the plan, F the timeline, in order to justify her decision.
All right, here we go.
About timelines. They can be helpful, but I also don't think we can let them dictate our lives. I have talked so much about timelines on this show because I genuinely believe that there is just so much more pressure on women regarding when they should be hitting certain milestones in their lives. You know yourself best. At the end of the day, only you have to live with the choices that you make about your life. That is way more stressful, in my opinion, than sticking to some like dumbass arbitrary made up timeline or your like mother-in-law bitching. Like, no, it's okay. It's your life. How do you want it to play out? I think getting fixated on a timeline is only going to box you in and make you feel stressed. Fuck the plan. Fuck the timeline. You can start over with anything at any point in your life. Whether it's moving to a new city, you're ending a relationship, you want to get out of a job you're miserable at, or you're pushing back when you want to have kids. The thing about timelines, they can be
only a 30-year-old who could say that. I think there are plenty of 60, 70-year-olds who would watch this and say, no, there are plenty of things that you can't take back.
Yeah.
There are plenty of things that you can't start over. You can't always get a fresh start.
I mean, she also seems to disregard her husband in that.
Yeah, he's just like a side show. I mean, he's like a side character. He's a supporting act in her life. He's just there to kind of be around when she needs him. But, if he ever expects anything out of her, that's not okay. That would be controlling and abusive, actually. And I also wanted to mention, there's nothing arbitrary about the fact that you will go through menopause. There's nothing arbitrary about the timelines that are placed on you by your biology. And that's maybe a terrifying thing to think about, but that also means you're being controlled by fear about other factors in your life. One of the comments said, I'm turning 30 this year and getting married in November. Everyone is on mine and my fiance's ass about when we plan on having kids. I have a hand in deciding my fate. I'm also terrified to come off of birth control too. As like you and many other women, I have been on it since I was 15. Thank you for talking about this. So what that sounds like is you're actually not taking control of your own decisions out of fear for what would happen. She's fearful of what would happen to her career if she had a baby. This woman is fearful of what would happen to her body if she went off of birth control, which she started as a child. Like, that doesn't sound like an empowered woman making unencumbered decisions in her own life. That sounds like fear. But it's being framed in this totally deceptive way where this is actually empowering and this is actually relatable and you should be mirroring the decisions I'm making, daddy gang. And it's the same thing that happened when she got married last year. After making her career and fame off of encouraging women to never commit. Their idea of talking about sex in an alpha male way means treat people as disposable objects because they feel like trash. They just want to get revenge on men who treat them like trash by treating the men like trash in return. That's not empowering. That's dehumanizing to everyone involved. And she encouraged the women watching Call Her Daddy to do the same thing and keep a roster and, never get married, never commit, never define a relationship. And she did the opposite of that in her own life because she doesn't care what happens to anyone else. She'll step on anyone to get ahead. That's even what happened between her and her former co-host on the podcast. She went around her co-host's back to sign a new deal to take the podcast away and have it be her own thing. And people forget about that because it's synonymous with Alex Cooper at this point. But she clearly isn't someone who has any care for loyalty to her friends, colleagues, let alone her audience that is just a faceless number to her.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give her props for being a fantastic businesswoman.
I will too.
I know that the purpose of this topic is to discuss the lies about kids and waiting and all that stuff. But as far as building a brand that speaks to an extremely large subset of women, she is very, very good at her job.
Right.
Very good at her job.
Almost to the point where I think, is this woman a sociopath?
I mean, a lot of people in that space, I don't know if it's necessarily that somebody's a sociopath or the fact that when you create something from, the comfort of your studio and you send that out to the world, sometimes it's hard to realize that you're affecting actual people. And the other thing is, like, a sociopath would give the idea that she knows what she's saying is bad for people and that she does it anyways. I don't know if I buy that she is that malicious, or is it just that she buys into the feminism that she spouts to everybody else?
I'm not saying I know for a fact one way or the other is Alex Cooper a sociopath, but I wouldn't be surprised just from her track record and the influence she has if she knew she could say things to emotionally manipulate her female audience to appear to them as a friend, sitting on the couch in her sweatpants, talking about all these vulnerable topics, inviting them to see themselves in her. And then conducting herself in a completely different way behind closed doors,
I mean,
in a way that benefits her.
At a certain point, that's just business. It's just business, and there is a specific type of business model that works with a form of authenticity. It works in this space as well, with certain types of content creators who, they make their bones by being open and honest with their audience. It allows people to draw a personal connection. She's probably like one of the more incredible examples of this. Obviously, I'm not speaking to anyone in specific. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but the reason why people started going away from traditional media and going to alt media was the perceived authenticity of the creators. Why would they lie to me?
Yes.
After decades upon decades of corporate media and art, to see people who at least feign some sense of authenticity. Now, there's a definite discussion to be had about and I had like a tweet about this recently too. It's just like, at a certain point, the decision to say something crazy that nobody else will say is framed as authenticity because they feel like nobody else would say it. But when the benefit of saying so is so great, then it's less about authenticity and more about personal gain. Now, I wasn't thinking of her when I said that, and I was thinking more about people who say offensive things. They're like, like everybody brags about on X wants to brag about how the words that they say that they're not supposed to say.
Right. But it does relate to this too.
It does. It
because
wasn't meant to.
She's making outlandish blanket statements about people's lives and the life-changing decisions that they can make. The wild thing that she said in that clip was, F the plan, F the timeline.
I did see a super...
We don't plan things out. We just do whatever feels best to us in the moment. And like, people in the audience would think, oh, I love Alex Cooper. Everyone else is afraid to say this. She's not afraid to say it. Everyone else is thinking it, but they're too cowardly to say it out loud. And I love that she's so authentic to say it.
I do agree with this comment from Yvonne. Ivan says, Mary forgets that Alex is the norm. Mary is actually the abnormal woman. Alex behaves like most women.
I disagree with that. I think that she has an audience of women that are, of course, easily influenced and suggestible, and they're falling for a lot of propaganda, but she is smarter than them.
Yes,
by a long shot.
Yes, but she is what she says resonates with them, so she is the norm. If I'm to take her at her word, and she's not just saying it for money, right? Like, that's the quintessential idea of the grifter, right? That she buys into the feminist messaging that she's selling everyone, then she is simply parroting back what is already the norm amongst women in today's culture. Your views on religion, your views on relationships and birth control are not the societal norm.
Certainly, yes.
They are not.
Yes, I agree with that, at least. And I mean, I think that I also wanted to touch on this, that she's talking about her situation about delaying family while married, which a lot of the women watching, they're not married. So they're hearing her advice as a married person on why you should delay starting a family when they're not even in a relationship, let alone engaged or married.
They're like, yeah, I will wait to get married.
Yeah, it's like, well, you don't have the luxury of deciding that because you're not with the future father of your children yet. She is. She's speaking literally from a place of privilege. And it would be a much different conversation if she were sitting there as a single woman, especially if she were sitting there as a single celibate woman, talking about how kids aren't in her immediate future. But as a married person who was planning to have kids this year and decided against it because a giant $100 million podcast deal showed up in her lap and demanded more of her priorities, that is a totally different planet of discussion. It's not relatable. And I think it's someone who with a very unique trajectory in life, and she knows that, and she has very unique skills and advantages and privileges over most of the women who watch her show. And she knows all of that. But she will still disguise herself as a relatable friend who is on an equal playing field with them and can give them advice that actually means something. It's a lie. It's just, it infuriates me to see her lying through her big old veneers the way that she does.
There's a 20 here from Elijah Flash 232 says Joe Rogan talking about random shit bad. 304 is talking about 304 shit is good. Got it.
According to
Alex Cooper.
I suppose. I mean, Joe Rogan is about as mainstream as you can get as a podcaster, though.
Yeah,
it's almost a red flag if a man doesn't listen to Joe Rogan.
But the thing is like, no. I think that's one of those. I think Joe Rogan is a sort of benchmark for how generally open-minded someone can be these days.
Yeah.
If I see somebody who I don't know anything about, and at the very least they follow Joe Rogan, you know that they're willing to listen to people who say crazy shit. And people that disagree with them, because he does tend to have people. It's a guy who'll have on Bernie and J.D. Vance and Trump and whoever wants to talk about stuff. So they're vastly different markets, though.
I'm sure it doesn't even need to be said, but for any of the men watching, if you find out that the girl you're dating is in the daddy gang, run, don't walk.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.